In a previous video, I discussed the symbolism within the Wheel of Life, exploring concepts such as the 3 poisons, 6 realms, karma, and the 12 links of dependent origination. In this video, I aim to delve further into Buddhism by elaborating on other significant concepts. To achieve this, I will focus on the 3 main schools of Buddhism, Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. Instead of retelling the well-known story of Gautama Buddha, which is widely available, let us begin by understanding the core concepts of Buddhism derived from the Buddha's experience, the 4 Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. These concepts are agreed upon by all the main schools. If you have a clear understanding of these concepts, feel free to skip ahead to the part where I delve into the teachings of each school to understand their differences. During his enlightenment, the Buddha realized the 4 Noble Truths, which can be summarized as follows. 1. Suffering exists in life. We all inevitably face aging, sickness, and death. Both physical and emotional pain are inherent. Even in moments of happiness, they tend to be fleeting. Our attempts to cling on to these moments of joy lead to increased suffering. 2. The causes of suffering are rooted in the 3 mental poisons: attachment to pleasure, aversion to the unpleasant, and ignorance of the impermanence of all things. 3. To cease suffering, attachments to these cravings must be relinquished. Natural detachment occurs when desires are realized, either in physical manifestations or consciousness, and it becomes clear that they do not provide ultimate satisfaction. This process leads eventually to the realization of nirvana and breaking free from the cycle of samsara. 4. The Noble Eightfold Path is the means to end suffering. The Noble Eightfold Path, often represented by the 8-spoke Dharma wheel, consists of right view, right intention, right effort, right concentration, right mindfulness, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. To better understand this, envision that 4 of these aspects pertain to the mind, while the remaining 4 guide how the mind manifests in terms of effort, speech, action, and livelihood. The content of our minds is shaped by our past actions, and this perpetuates in the subsequent cycle of mind action. Thus, it can be seen as a feedback loop where the mind influences our actions, and our actions, in turn, shape the mind. Right view involves recognizing the 4 Noble Truths and understanding the law of cause and effect, karma. It also entails recognizing that death is not the end, and that through successive rebirths, we experience the consequences of our actions. By perceiving things as they truly are and acknowledging the impermanence and interconnectedness of all phenomena, a foundation is set for the development of the remaining aspects of the path. Right intention involves cultivating wholesome motivations such as compassion and kindness while relinquishing harmful motivations like greed and hatred. Right effort entails making diligent efforts to guard our minds. This allows wholesome qualities to be sustained whilst unwholesome tendencies are eliminated over time. Right concentration involves developing focused and concentrated mental states through meditation, leading to absorption and insight. Right mindfulness involves cultivating present moment awareness and non-judgmental observation of life. Right speech involves refraining from lying, divisive speech, and gossip. It emphasizes the wise and skillful use of words. Right action involves abstaining from harming living beings, stealing, engaging in sexual misconduct, and consuming intoxicants. It also encompasses engaging in wholesome actions rooted in compassion, generosity, and integrity. Elements of right speech and right action have been incorporated into the observance of the 5 precepts in Buddhism, which include: 1. To refrain from killing living beings. 2. To refrain from stealing or taking what is not given. 3. To refrain from engaging in sexual misconduct. 4. To refrain from consuming intoxicating substances. 5. To refrain from speaking falsely or engaging in harmful speech. Lastly, we have right livelihood, which pertains to abstaining from professions that involve harming others, such as weapons trading or butchering. Next, let us delve into each of these schools to understand their differences more comprehensively. Theravada Buddhism, often referred to as the doctrine of the elders, is considered the oldest surviving Buddhist tradition. It traces its origins back to the early teachings of the Buddha and is primarily practiced in Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos. Theravada places a strong emphasis on the original scriptures known as the Tipitaka or Pali Canon, which are regarded as the authoritative teachings of the Buddha. These scriptures contain discourses, rules for monastic discipline, and philosophical treatises that form the basis of Theravada doctrine. Meditation holds a central place in Theravada Buddhism, with a focus on the cultivation of mindfulness and the development of concentration. One of the prominent aspects of Theravada meditation is the attainment of jhanas, which are deep states of meditative absorption. The journey through the jhanas involves progressing through 4 distinct stages. In the first jhana, while becoming secluded from external sense impressions, mental hindrances like restlessness and impatience diminish, and a sense of rapture and bliss arises spontaneously in the body. It is important to note that in the first jhana, the mind is still actively focusing on the object of meditation, such as the breath. In the second jhana, the object of meditation fades away, and the mind enters a state free from thoughts, what one would call absorption. At this state, there is still the rapture and bliss. In the third jhana, the rapture disappears, and the mind is characterized by a balanced awareness. Finally, in the fourth jhana, even the bliss recedes, leaving behind pure equanimity and mindfulness. Beyond these four jhanas, practitioners in Theravada Buddhism can develop what are known as formless attainments, infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and neither perception nor non-perception. Beyond these formless attainments lies the ultimate goal of Theravada Buddhism, the attainment of nirvana. Through the development of concentration, practitioners in Theravada Buddhism cultivate insight, vipassana, into the three fundamental characteristics of existence: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the absence of a permanent self. The first two characteristics, impermanence and unsatisfactoriness, have already been alluded to earlier. However, Buddhism goes even further in its understanding of the nature of self. It challenges the concept of an eternal, unchanging soul. In Buddhism, the belief is that the elements we typically identify as ourselves, our body, thoughts, feelings, and consciousness, are not fixed entities but rather aggregates that are in constant flux. They are subject to change, arising and passing away, and cannot be relied upon to define an independent and everlasting self. Instead, Buddhism offers a perspective of interdependence and interconnectedness as a more accurate depiction of reality. It suggests that all phenomena are interrelated and mutually dependent, with no inherent separation between self and other. This understanding implies that our individual identities are not isolated entities but rather interconnected aspects of a greater whole. In my interpretation, I see this as pointing towards the concept of oneness, the notion that we are all interconnected and inseparable from a universal source, and that this source encompasses all of us. While, on a superficial level, there may appear to be an independent soul, a deeper examination reveals that this notion dissolves. The so-called independent soul is merely an extension of a larger collective, and that collective is part of an even broader interconnectedness. To illustrate this concept, consider the analogy of a conscious finger. If one of your fingers were to suddenly gain consciousness, it would realize that it never possesses an eternal and independent existence. Instead, it had always been an integral part of the entire body, interconnected and interdependent with every other aspect. Theravada Buddhism emphasizes individual liberation and the pursuit of arahantship, the state of enlightenment achieved by fully extinguishing all defilements and desires. Arahants are seen as liberated beings who have attained the highest level of spiritual realization and are no longer subject to rebirth in samsara. Theravada Buddhism's primary focus on individual liberation and the pursuit of arahantship sets it apart from other Buddhist traditions. While the Theravada tradition does not emphasize the worship of deities or the involvement of elaborate rituals, devotion to the Triple Gem, the Buddha, the Dharma, teachings, and the Sangha, community of monastic practitioners, is highly regarded. Monastic life plays a significant role in Theravada Buddhism, with monks and nuns dedicating themselves to the practice, study, and preservation of the teachings. Mahayana Buddhism, known as the Great Vehicle, originated in the 1st century CE and spread throughout East Asia, including China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. In contrast to Theravada Buddhism, which emphasizes individual liberation, Mahayana Buddhism places great importance on the concept of the bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is someone who aspires not to leave the realms of existence, even if they have the opportunity to do so, until all sentient beings have gained enlightenment. This perspective aligns with the understanding that we are interconnected and part of a greater whole. It also addresses the question of individual liberation in Theravada traditions. If there is no permanent self, who is the one seeking liberation? Zen Buddhism, a part of the Mahayana tradition, shares the emphasis on meditation. In Zen, seated meditation, known as zazen, takes center stage. Zen meditation aims for direct experiential realization beyond conceptual thought. The use of paradoxical statements called koans is also common in Zen Buddhism to test one's state of realization. Another noteworthy aspect of Mahayana Buddhism is Pure Land Buddhism. This branch believes that through devotional practices, recitation of Buddha names, nembutsu, and visualizations, individuals can be reborn in pure lands presided over by Buddhas such as Amitabha Buddha. Mahayana Buddhism expands upon the foundational teachings of the Buddha by incorporating new sutras and philosophical developments. Significant Mahayana scriptures include the Lotus Sutra, Heart Sutra, Diamond Sutra, and Pure Land Sutras. Vajrayana Buddhism, also known as Tantric Buddhism or the Diamond Vehicle, emerged in India around the 5th century CE and gained prominence in Tibet, Bhutan, Nepal, and Mongolia. In Vajrayana, the ultimate goal is to attain enlightenment within one's current lifetime, rather than seeking liberation through countless rebirths. Vajrayana is considered an accelerated path, characterized by esoteric practices, ritual ceremonies, and the use of mantras, mudras, and mandalas, all aimed at purifying the mind. Vajrayana incorporates elements from earlier Buddhist and Hindu traditions, particularly the tantric techniques of mantra recitation, visualizations, and energy-based practices. The guru-disciple relationship holds central importance in Vajrayana. A qualified guru, or spiritual teacher, is essential for transmitting the tantric teachings and guiding students on the path. Through initiation, empowerment, and subsequent instructions, the guru introduces disciples to specific deities, mandalas, and practices tailored to their individual needs. The Tantras, sacred texts specific to Vajrayana, provide detailed instructions for engaging in complex rituals, meditation practices, and inner energy practices. These practices are often kept secret and shared only with qualified practitioners who have received proper initiation and guidance. Deity yoga, a key practice in Vajrayana, involves visualizing oneself as a specific enlightened deity and merging one's mind with their qualities. Vajrayana also places great emphasis on the transformative power of subtle energies within the body, such as the channels, winds, and essences. Practices like tummo, inner heat, are used to work with these subtle energies. While Theravada Buddhism minimally focuses on deities, Mahayana Buddhism introduces various Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. However, it is in Vajrayana Buddhism where one can find a rich pantheon of deities representing different enlightened qualities. These deities serve as objects of meditation and devotion. Examples include Avalokiteshvara, the embodiment of compassion, Manjushri, the embodiment of wisdom, Tara, the female embodiment of compassion and swift action, and Vajrayogini, a fierce form of wisdom. By exploring the distinctive features of Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana Buddhism, it becomes evident that while they share common foundational teachings, each tradition offers unique paths and practices. Theravada emphasizes meditation, insight, and individual liberation as arahants. Mahayana, on the other hand, focuses on the compassionate bodhisattva ideal. Lastly, Vajrayana incorporates esoteric practices, such as deity yoga and tantric methods which target the subtle energy bodies.